He was sitting in the most expensive chair in the most expensive office in the building, and he felt absolutely nothing. That was the moment Daniel knew something had gone terribly wrong. His name is Daniel. He is 78 years old, and he has asked me to tell you something. Not because he wants your sympathy, and not because he wants to impress you. He wants to tell you because nobody told him, and it cost him everything that mattered. So sit down, stay with him for a minute, because what took Daniel a lifetime to understand, you can learn right now. He grew up in a small house in Ohio, cement block walls, a furnace that groaned through every winter. His father worked at a factory 40 minutes down the road, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Daniel remembers watching him come through the front door every evening, shoulders rounded, hands cracked at the knuckles, stained with grease that soap couldn't reach, boots that never fully dried. His father was a good man, a quiet man, a man who gave everything he had to that factory and came home with almost nothing left. And still, people looked through him. Neighbors, bosses, even distant relatives at Christmas. They spoke past him, over him, like he was furniture, like he didn't count. Daniel was 9 years old the first time he saw it clearly. His father was trying to explain something at a family dinner, some small opinion, some gentle observation, and the room just kept moving. No one turned, no one paused. His father's voice faded out like a radio station losing signal. Daniel watched his father's face. He saw the moment his father decided not to try again. And something locked into place inside that 9-year-old boy. A promise, a vow so deep it never even reached words. That will never be me. He started working hard the way some boys start fighting, out of fear dressed up as ambition. School first, then college on a partial scholarship and 2 part-time jobs, then a career in business that swallowed his 20s whole. He didn't mind. He was building something. He was becoming someone. He was going to be the man his father never got to be. 60 hours a week, sometimes 70. He missed his cousin's wedding. He missed his mother's 65th birthday dinner. Sent flowers, told himself that was enough. He missed ordinary Tuesday evenings that never announced themselves as important and never came back. He told himself he was sacrificing for later, that all of it, the late nights, the missed dinners, the weekends at the office, was an investment. That one day he would cash it in and finally feel the thing he was working toward. He just didn't have a name for the thing yet. He thought it was success. He thought it was money. He thought it was the title on the door, the table at the restaurant where they knew your name, the moment someone across a room leaned over to whisper, "That's Daniel Marsh," the way people whisper about people who matter. He got all of it. The promotions came, then the office with the glass walls on the top floor of a building he could see from the highway. The house his wife had always wanted, real hardwood floors, a backyard with an oak tree, 2 cars, savings, recognition, a name people said with a particular kind of respect that he had spent decades engineering. He had climbed the mountain. And what afternoon, a Tuesday, ordinary and unremarkable, pale winter light coming through the glass, he sat in his chair at the top of the building he had conquered and waited to feel it. The pride, the peace, the arrival. He waited. Nothing came. Not satisfaction, not joy, not even the simple, quiet pleasure of a man who has earned his rest. Just a hollow, echoless nothing, like shouting into a cave and hearing only your own voice come back, smaller than when it left. He sat there a long time. Then he picked up his briefcase, rode the elevator down, and drove home. He didn't tell anyone. What would he have said? I got everything I wanted, and I feel nothing. They would have told him he was tired. They would have told him to take a vacation. They wouldn't have understood that the emptiness wasn't exhaustion. It was something structural, something built wrong from the beginning. It would take him 20 more years to understand what. His wife's name was Ruth. She had loved him through all of it, the ambition, the absence, the years when he was physically present but mentally somewhere else entirely. She was patient in the way that good people are patient, not passive, not resigned, but genuinely committed to the person she believed he could be. But patience has a shape, and it changes over time. One night, they were sitting at the kitchen table, the oak floors, the house he'd delivered, everything she'd asked for, and she said something quietly that cut straight through him like a blade through still water. "I don't need what you give me," she said. "I need you." He heard the words. He processed them. He even reached across the table and covered her hand with his. But he didn't understand them. He thought, "I am here. I'm right here." He was there the way furniture is there, physically occupying a space, taking up room, but absent in every way that mattered. His mind was at the office. His mind was on the next quarter, the next deal, the next rung on the ladder that he was still climbing even though he'd already reached the top. There is a difference, a slow, devastating, almost invisible difference between providing for someone and being present with them, between giving a person everything they asked for and giving them yourself. Daniel learned that difference almost too late. Almost. Ruth stayed. They worked at it in the painful, unglamorous way that long marriages require. There were nights that were very hard. There were conversations that didn't go anywhere. There were silences that lasted weeks. But she stayed. And slowly, haltingly, Daniel began the work of learning to actually be somewhere, to actually arrive in the room he was in. It was harder than anything he had done in business. Because in business, the targets were clear, the rules were written, you could measure whether you were winning. This was different. This required him to sit still with himself. And sitting still with himself was the one thing he had spent 50 years running from. He is 78 now. Most of his friends are in their 70s and 80s too. He has noticed something. The unhappy ones, and there are several, are still at it, still chasing, still measuring. One of them is 81 years old, still seething because his neighbor drives a newer car, still tallying up grievances, still waiting for life to rearrange itself into the shape that will finally make him feel okay. Another one of them, a woman he has known for 40 years, still complains every time he sees her. Her health, her ungrateful children, her past. Every conversation is a list of evidence for why her life didn't turn out right. She is still waiting, still keeping score. They are running out of time, and they don't know it. Or maybe they know it and can't stop anyway, which is worse. But then there are the others. The ones who feel, and this is the only word for it, lighter. Not because their lives are easier, not because they have more. Some of them have lost more than Daniel can imagine. Spouses, children, health, years. And yet they move through the world without that grinding, clenching need, without the scoreboard. His closest friend, a man named George, who has known him longer than anyone still living, said something to him last spring that Daniel cannot stop thinking about. They were sitting on George's porch, May afternoon, the kind of light that makes everything look like a memory. George was looking out at nothing in particular, comfortable in his own quiet. "You know what I figured out?" George said. Daniel waited. "I spent my whole life trying to become someone." He paused, turned his coffee cup in his hands. "Now I'm just learning how to be here." Daniel sat with that. Be here. Not become, not achieve, not prove, just be here, in this chair, in this light, in this one unrepeatable afternoon. That was it. That was the whole answer. 50 years of running, and the finish line was the place he'd started. He wants you to understand something. The fear doesn't go away when you get there. That's the trap. You genuinely believe that arriving will quiet the noise. That paying off the house, reaching the salary, earning the title, getting the approval, that one of those things will finally calm the thing inside you that is always slightly afraid. It doesn't. The fear just changes shape. Daniel paid off the mortgage and immediately started worrying about retirement funds, built the retirement fund, and started worrying about medical bills. Won the approval of people who had once looked through him and found himself worrying whether they still approved, whether it would last. Nothing outside of him ever fixed what was happening inside of him, because the problem was never out there. The problem was a 9-year-old boy who watched his father's voice disappear in a room full of people and decided without words that he would make himself impossible to ignore. The problem was that the boy grew into a man who was still, at 60, at 70, trying to prove something to a dining room full of people who weren't even alive anymore. He was chasing a feeling, not things. Safety, worth, the bone-deep sense that he counted, that he wasn't invisible, that he was enough. No title can make you feel worthy. No number in a bank account can make you feel safe. No amount of applause can make you feel whole. Those feelings cannot be manufactured from the outside in. They are decisions, internal ones. And here is what took Daniel nearly 8 decades to understand. You could make them today. There is no finish line. There is no moment where it all locks into place. There will always be another goal on the other side of the goal you just reached. Always another problem. Always another next. The horizon moves. That's what horizons do. So if you were living in the "I'll be happy when," you were using up the only thing you actually have. This moment. This ordinary, unremarkable, completely irretrievable moment. Not later, not someday. Now. Look around at what is actually here. The person in the next room, the light coming through that window, the fact that you are breathing, that your heart is working, that you are alive in this one particular moment that will never come again. That is not nothing. That is everything. He sits on his porch in the evenings now. Ruth brings out 2 cups of tea. They don't always talk. Sometimes they just sit in the late light and watch the yard go golden and quiet. He used to think silence was empty. He understands now that silence can be the fullest thing there is. He thinks about his father sometimes. The cracked hands, the rounded shoulders, the voice that disappeared in a dining room. He thinks his father might have been wiser than he ever gave him credit for. His father had come home every night. His father had been there, really there, at the table, in the house, in the life. Maybe the invisible man was never invisible. Maybe Daniel had just been looking in the wrong direction the whole time. Everything you've been chasing has been with you from the beginning. You just never stopped long enough to notice. And that right there is the only thing Daniel wished someone had told him at 30. He is telling you now. The question is whether you'll wait 50 years to believe it. If you felt something just now, if Daniel's words touched a place in you that you don't usually let anyone near, then this channel was made for you. Subscribe to the 11th Hour's Last Words. Hit the bell so you never miss a story. Leave a comment below. What have you been chasing? We read every single one, and sometimes just writing it down is the first step to putting it down. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You probably already know who. You are not chasing things. You are chasing feelings, and no external achievement can deliver what only an internal decision can. What viewers carry with them. The "I'll be happy when" trap is universal and quietly devastating. Presence is not the same as proximity. The drive to prove yourself begins in childhood wounds, and without awareness, never ends. Contentment is a daily choice, not a destination. It is never too late. At 78, Daniel is still learning.